Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vācālam pangam langyate gire. Yat kripātamaham vande Shri Gurudīna Tātam Paramanandam Madhavam. So we'll resume our discussion from the 6th chapter, 4th canto, and we were at verse 37. So 4th canto, 6th chapter is titled Brahma Satisfies Lord Shiva. And just to do a quick recap, that it began with the Devas approaching Lord Brahma for help after Veerbhadra and his associates had desecrated the yajna, killed Daksha, and attacked and hurt many Devas. So being fearful of the offense, they approached Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma chastises them in terms of the fault at their side of either actively insulting Lord Shiva or being a part to it. And then he says, you come with me and we will beg forgiveness of Lord Shiva. He's Ashutosh. He will definitely forgive us. So taking the demigods, he heads towards the abode of Lord Shiva. Then the next set of verses, almost 23 verses, are a description initially of the Kailash hill and then the Alaka region, and description of the plants over there, the animals over there, the natural beauty there, the immense amount of variety over there. And then finally, the Devas reach a large tree. And underneath that tree is seated Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is surrounded by great sages, Narad Muni, the 4 Kumars, Kuber, and the Acharya said indicates his completeness in terms of opulences. The Kuber indicates all his material opulences. The 4 Kumar indicates his Gyan. And Narad Muni, of course, indicates his topmost opulence of Bhakti. So we'll resume from verse 37, which is further description of Lord Shiva's, the Deva's first view of Lord Shiva. Upvishitam dharamyayam Vrishyan Brahma Sanatanam Naradaya Provachantam Ashatershan Vatam Satam. He was seated on a straw mattress and was speaking to all present, including the great sage Narad, to whom he specifically spoke about the absolute truth. So previously it was mentioned that Sanaka and the others were worshipping Lord Shiva. So while their presence is acknowledged, the presence of Narad Muni is specifically being acknowledged because he was the best amongst them, because he is the personification of devotional service. And from this, it can also be understood that the main topic of discussion was concerning bhakti. So Srila Prabhupada writes that the Lord was sitting on a mattress of straw because such a sitting place is accepted by persons who are practicing austerities to gain understanding of the absolute truth. And it is specifically mentioned that he was speaking to the great sage Narad, a celebrated devotee. Narad was asking Lord Shiva about devotional service, and Shiva, being the topmost Vaishnava, was instructing him. In other words, Lord Shiva and Narad were discussing the knowledge of the Veda, but it is to be understood that the subject matter was devotional service. Another point with this connection is that Lord Shiva is the supreme instructor and the great sage Narad is the supreme audience. Therefore, the supreme subject matter of Vedic knowledge is Bhakti. The Prabhupada is making this point that there can be many conversations that can happen, but when the speaker is highly qualified and when the audience is highly qualified, then the subject matter has to be elevated. And subject matter that is elevated has to do with the Lord and his devotion. We see the same thing when Sutta Goswami is speaking to the sages of Naimisharanya. And then the sages basically also say that when Parishit Maharaj spoke to Sukadeva Goswami, both of them are elevated. What were the topics that they were speaking? And similarly, when Maitreya, he asks Uddhav that when you spoke to Krishna, then the topics have to be very confidential and of the highest level. Krishna is the Lord and you are his supreme devotee, so the topics must have been very exalted. What were the topics? So when exalted people sit and talk, the topics are also exalted, and Prabhupada says they will invariably concern themselves with respect to the Lord and his devotional service. Verse 38. Kritparo dakshine savyam bhad padmam chajanuni bahum prakoste akshmala ashinam tarkamudraya. His left leg was placed on his right thigh, and his left hand was placed on his left thigh. This sitting posture is called Virasana. In his right hand, he held Rudraksha beads, and his finger was in the mode of argument. So, a picture is being painted of Lord Shiva's sitting position. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that in the Yoga Sutras, it is explained that Virasana is placing the foot on the opposite thigh and the hands on the thigh. And Prabhupada says that the left leg is on the left thigh and the left hand is on the left thigh. And then in his fingers he has Rudraksha. So Rudraksha literally means, so Rudra is Lord Shiva and Aksha is eyes. So it literally means the eyes of Lord Shiva. So there is a particular plant that produces the Rudraksha. Just like for the Vaishnavas, Tulsi is considered to be sacred, and the manjaris are used, Tulsi leaves, like everything with respect to the Tulsi, the leaves or the twigs or the manjaris. Similarly, for Lord followers of Lord Shiva, this Rudraksha, it's basically like a fruit, and they do the chanting on the Rudraksha. The Kantimala is that of the Rudraksha. And there is a pastime about how the Rudraksha is, sometimes it's called the tears of Lord Shiva. that Lord Shiva, out of compassion, his tears fell down his eyes and they became the Rudraksh. And there are other pastimes that talk about the connection between Rudraksh and Lord Shiva. So in his right hand, he had a japamala made of Rudraksha. Then in the purport, Prabhupada says that Lord Shiva is called Yog Ishvara, the master of all yogis. And Krishna is called Yog Ishvara. So Yog Ishvara indicates that one cannot surpass Lord Shiva in the practice of yoga. He is the master of it, the best. And Yog Ishvara indicates that nobody can surpass the yogic perception of Krishna. So the difference is, one is practitioner and the other is perfection. In terms of practitioner, Lord Shiva is the topmost. In terms of perfection, Krishna is the topmost. Then it's defined that it's also described that he had finger in the Tarka Mudra. So Tarka, as Prabhupada translate, means Tark means argument. It means emphasizing on a point. So Prabhupada says that that when the second finger is raised along with the arms, and the other fingers are kind of open, and Prabhupada would follow it. So Tarka Mudra is something like this: that the second finger is raised, and the other fingers are not clenched, so they are kind of like opened. So it's like making a point, argumentation. That think of this of this. Vishwanath Chakravarti, he defines this mudra slightly differently. He says that Tarka Mudra is when the forefinger and the thumb is closed and the other fingers are like this. So like putting a hand in this way or in this way is called the Tarka Mudra. When Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, then he used the same mudra that is used to describe the milking of a cow. And in Gita Mahatma, as you know, it is said that that Krishna is the cowherd boy that is milking the essence of the Upanishads into the Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna is like a calf that is drinking that. This is not so those of you who are pujaris know there is the Dhenu Mudra or the Surabhi Mudra. This is not that, because that needs both the hands. But I could not, so this is the mudra that is used. It represents the position of the hands when a cow is being milked. But I could not get a more authoritative description of how that mudra is formed. Moving on, verse 39. Dham Brahma Nirvana Samadhimashritam Yupashritam Girisham Yoga Kaksham Salokapala Munaya Manuna Adyam Manum Prajalaya Pranemu. All the sages and demigods, headed by Indra, offered their respectful obeisances unto Lord Shiva with folded hands. Lord Shiva was dressed in saffron garments and absorbed in trance, thus appearing to be the foremost of all sages. So this verse describes the appearance of Lord Shiva as witnessed by the Devas. So he is described as Brahma Nirvan Samadhim Ashrita, that he is absorbed in the bliss of Brahman. So Prabhupada says the Brahmanand or the Brahma Nirvan is explained by Prahlad Maharaj. And this is 7th canto, 7th chapter, verse 37. When one is completely absorbed in Adhokshaja, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the sense perception of materialistic person, one is situated in Brahmananda. So we have to just bear in mind that Brahman can mean many things. Generally, Brahman refers to the impersonal Brahman, and Brahmanand refers to the joy of impersonal liberation. That's why it's said that Vishayanand is insignificant in compared to Brahmanand. Brahmanand is insignificant compared to Paramanand, of joy with the relationship to Paramatma. And Paramanand is insignificant when it is compared with Rasananda or Leelananda, one who is participating in the Leela or the Rasa pastimes of Krishna. But Brahman can also mean the personality of God. Brahman essentially means non-material, means spiritual. And because spiritual can apply to anything non-material, whether it is Brahman or Paramatma or Krishna himself, Brahmanand can also be understood. So it's contextual. In this context, Brahmanand is absorbed in Adhokshaja, absorbed in the personality of Godhead. Now, what was his mood? So, Samadhim Ashritam. So, Samadhim is complete absorption. So, Prabhupada says that one who has achieved the qualification of always meditating on the personality of Godhead is to be understood, always in trance and enjoying Brahma Nirvan or Brahmananda. Lord Shiva exhibited those symptoms, and therefore it is stated that he was absorbed in Brahmananda. And so that was his mood. And externally, he was sitting in Yoga Kaksha. Prabhupada says Yoga Kaksha is when the left thigh is fixed under one's tightly knotted saffron colored garment. Now, saffron is a color of renunciation. If you remember, when Sati Devi was ready to give up her body, then she changed into saffron colored clothes, indicating that she is now renouncing. And because Lord Shiva by nature is renounced, he is wearing this saffron colored garments. And he is also known as Manunam Adyam, the chief of the meditators. Prabhupada says that a philosopher or anyone who is thoughtful or can think very nicely is called a Manu. And because Lord Shiva is the chief of them, he is called the Manunam Adya. So later in the 24th chapter, it is said, Muni Vichasate Nanu Tatrate Gatim, that the devotee is as thoughtful as a non-devotee is speculative. So this quality of being Manu, one of the qualities of the devotees is that he is that he's a philosopher, Kavim. So just like a non-devotee is speculative, they're also using their mind very actively, but to speculate. The devotee uses the mind to introspect and come closer to Krishna. And what is Lord Shiva thinking about? So he's thinking about the welfare of everybody, how to give them Krishna consciousness. So he's the perceptor of the Rudra Sampradaya. And Lord Shiva's concern for the masses in general is demonstrated by his incarnation as Advaita Acharya. When for the welfare of the people in the age of Kali, he appeared and then he made Krishna appear as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then with him, he established the Sankirtan movement. So Advaita Acharya sometimes is considered to be a combined incarnation of Sadashiva and Mahavishnu. He is also considered to be an incarnation of Gopeshwar Mahadev. So it is said that the original Swarup of Lord Shiva in Golok. So Lord Shiva exists as Sadashiv in Vaikuntha, Ishan. But it is also said that Lord Shiva, he serves Krishna in Goloka. And there he is Gopeshwar Mahadev. So Gopeshwar means the foremost of the gopis. So there he is serving Krishna in an intimate way as the gopis. And Advaita Acharya is actually considered to be an incarnation of Gopeshwar Mahadev. I don't have the references for this. I tried to look for them. This I heard based on a lecture from what I consider to be a bona fide source. However, I don't have the references to this. That where exactly does Prabhupada say? Or I'm not sure Prabhupada actually says this at any point. So just to add that as a note to this. Verse 40. Satupal bhayagatam atmayonim sura sureshe rabivanditangrihi uthaya chakre shirashabhivandanam arhatama kashya yatheva Vishnu. Lord Shiva's lotus feet were worshipped by both the demigods and demons. But still, in spite of his exalted position, as soon as he saw that Lord Brahma was there among all the other demigods, he immediately stood up and offered respects by bowing down and touching his lotus feet. Just as Vaman Dev offered his respectful obeisances to Kashyapa Muni. So this is an interesting verse. That even though Lord Shiva's position is superior to that of Brahma, but as soon as he saw Lord Brahma, he stood up and offered obeisances to Kashyapa Muni. And why he does it is to a glimpse of that is offered in the analogy that is given. Just as Vaman Dev offered his respectful obeisances to Kashyapa Muni. So Vaman Dev's position is obviously superior to Kashyapa Muni. But from a pastime perspective, Vaman Dev was the son of Kashyapa Muni. So Kashyapa Muni as the father had a superior position, and Vaman Dev, respecting the social etiquette, he had offered obeisances to Kashyapa Muni. And Prabhupada also offers two other examples of this. That Lord Krishna as a child, he used to offer obeisances to his mother and father, Nanda and Yashoda. Though his position was obviously supreme, but because they had the position of his parents, He would offer obeisances to them. He would take the slippers of Nand Baba, put it on his head. So basically acknowledging the position. And in Krishna, there's also the rasa, that he enjoys serving his devotees, but also respecting the social position. And then in the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna, he touches the feet of Maharaj Yudhishthira to get his blessings. Because in age and relationship, Yudhishthira was older than Krishna and was like his elder brother. So just like Arjun and Bhim and Nakul Sahadev touched his feet, Krishna also touched his feet. Social etiquette there. Now, the interesting point in this verse is that it indicates that Lord Shiva is obviously cognizant of and following conventional etiquette. So why did he not do that with Daksha? So even though Daksha's position was inferior to him, but his social position as father-in-law was superior. Just like Brahma. Brahma's position is inferior to Shiva, but social position is that Brahma is the father of Shiva. So when he was offering respects to Brahma because of social etiquette, why did he not offer respects to Daksha? The explanation to that is actually given by Lord Shiva himself to Sati Devi in the previous chapter, where Lord Shiva says that I was absorbed in the meditation of Krishna at the time. And because I was completely absorbed, I was not aware of what was happening externally. Now, one might say that even here in the previous verse, it is mentioned that Brahma Nirvan Samadhim Ashritam, that he is Samadhim, that he is absorbed in the bliss of Brahma Nirvan. But the difference is that this is describing his general disposition. That generally he is absorbed in the bliss of Krishna. Because it's also described that he was conversing with Narad and the four Kumaras and etc. So you cannot have a conversation if you are in complete samadhi. But at the sacrifice of Daksha, Lord Shiva had said that it is not in my control. That Vasudev appears in Vasudev with his own free will. So in my purified consciousness, the proprietor of that purified consciousness appears whenever he pleases. It's not in my control. So he happened to appear at that time. And because when he appears, I get completely absorbed. So I lost awareness of the external surroundings. Otherwise, Lord Shiva would have certainly stood up to show respect to Daksha just out of consideration for his position as father-in-law. So this verse indicates or reaffirms the point that Lord Shiva made, that if Lord Shiva was indeed proud of his position, he would not have stood for Brahma, but he did. So the points that Lord Shiva made are substantiated. That it's just so happened that that Krishna appeared and completely absorbed his consciousness. Verse 41. Tatha pare siddhana maharashibhi ye vai samanta dano nilahutam namaskrit praha shashanka shekharam krat pranamam prahassan nivatmabhi. All the sages were sitting with Lord Shiva, such as Narad and others. All the sages who were sitting with Lord Shiva, such as Narad and others, also offered their respectful obeisances to Lord Brahma. After being so worshipped, Lord Brahma, smiling, began to speak to Lord Shiva. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that the smile of Lord Brahma was to cover his fear. So Brahma was fearful that Lord Shiva may be angry for two reasons. That he had been insulted by Daksha while Brahma and the others stood by and watched. Right? One reason. And the second is that he had lost his beloved wife. And grief and anger are closely related to. So Brahma was fearful of this, and he knew that Lord Shiva is Rudra. He gets angry quickly. So he's fearful of the anger of Shiva. So he smiles to cover his fear. He also smiles to ingratiate himself, because Lord Shiva is Ashutosha. He is easily pleased. So he's offering a pleasing smile to Lord Shiva to get into his good books. Prabhupada said Lord Brahma was smiling because he knew that Lord Shiva is not only easily satisfied, but easily irritated as well. He was afraid that Lord Shiva might be in an angry mood because he had lost his wife and had been insulted by Daksha. In order to conceal the fear, he smiled and addressed Lord Shiva as follows. So now we see in the next set of verses, 12 verses, we see a master logician at play. Brahma is the personification of intelligence, and we see how he uses it fully in order to dissipate any tension between Lord Shiva, the anger of Lord Shiva, and to get concessions from him. Verse 42. Brahmavacha janipayasham vishvasya jagato yoni bijayaha shakti shivasya cha param yattad brahma nirantaram. Lord Brahma said, my dear Lord Shiva, I know that you are the controller of the entire material manifestation. The combination father and mother of the cosmic manifestation. And the supreme Brahman beyond the cosmic manifestation as well. I know you in that way. So from this verse 42 till verse 53 is the glorification and the petition to Lord Shiva by Brahma. So Brahma says, Jane tvam isham vishvasya, that I know you are the Lord of the universe. Right? So he says, Isham means controller, Vishvasya. Jagato Yoni Bijaya. So Yoni Bij is essentially Shivling. Right? Yoni is the female sex organ, Bij is the male. Combination, Lord Shiva is worshipped as the Shivling. Jagato is the source. So it's Prakriti and Purush. Shakti Shivasya Cha Param. That Param means that you're superior to Shakti, which is Durga Devi or the material nature. And then he says you're superior to Shivasya. You're also superior to Lord Shiva. Yattad Brahma Nirantaram. And that you are also the Brahman without qualities, which means that you are spiritual. Without qualities means without material qualities. So essentially in this verse, Brahma is saying that I know that you are Sadashiva. He is glorifying Shiva as non-different from Sadashiva. That is why he is saying that you're superior to Shiva and Shakti. Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense to speak to Lord Shiva and say that you are superior to Lord Shiva. But he's addressing Lord Shiva in the mood of the Shaivites. The Shaivites consider Lord Shiva to be the ones who are properly situated. They consider him to be non-different from Sadashiv. So he said, you are Sadashiv. And we know that Sadashiv is he who combines with his energy. He combines with Shakti to create the material universe. That's why he says that you are the father and the mother of the universe. You are Shakti and Purusha. You are Shakti and Shiva. Then you are the supreme Brahman beyond material manifestation. Talking to the fact that Sadashiva is fully spiritual because he's a resident of the spiritual world of Vaikuntha. So he says, Jane Tvam Isham Vishwasya. Another name of Sadashiva is Ishan. And then controller of the universe. Now, in the verses that follow, Lord Brahma will actually glorify Lord Shiva at the level of Vishnu. A lot of things that are spoken typically in the context of Lord Vishnu will be spoken in the context of Lord Shiva. And one reason is that because he is an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, the statements can also be made. And Lord Vishnu is glorified as being attached to both material activities and external energy. So Lord Shiva can also be glorified in the same way. And when Sadashiva has to perform material activities, then he comes in the form of Lord Shiva. So you can read about it more in Srila Prabhupada's purports in 8th canto, 7th chapter. So when we reach the end of the next chapter, then there will be a discussion in terms of the position of Shiva with respect to Lord Vishnu. So how various verses in the Bhagavatam glorify Shiva as the Supreme Lord, what is the context in which they can be taken. Jiva Goswami also takes various verses from the Bhagavatam in this context of Lord Shiva being the Supreme and explains that how they can be understood. So in this one, Brahma is saying that to Shiva, that though you offer respects to me, you're actually much superior to me. You're on the level of the Supreme Lord. So he's saying, I know you are the form of Sadashiva. You are the Lord of the whole universe, and which is composed of Prapurusha and Prakriti. And you are also famous as the Nirantaram Brahma. Prabhupada writes in the purport that although Lord Brahma had received very respectful obeisances from Lord Shiva, he knew that Lord Shiva was in a more exalted position than himself. Lord Shiva's position is described in Brahma Samhita. There is no difference between Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva in their original positions. But still Lord Shiva is different from Lord Vishnu. The example is given that milk and yogurt is non-different from the original milk from which it is made. The Shiram Yatadadi Vikara Vishesha Yoga Sanjayate Naitata Pratagasti Hetu Yashambhutam Apitava Samupeti Karya Purvanamadi Purusham Tamam Vajan. Prabhupada explains that there's no difference between milk and yogurt, or actually Brahma explains, Bhakti Siddhanta writes in the purport, there's no difference between milk and yogurt, they're made of the same. But milk can become yogurt, yogurt cannot become milk. Milk becomes yogurt by the action of acids, and when the Supreme Lord has to come in contact with the modes of material nature, then he assumes the position of Lord Shiva. Okay. We'll do one more verse, and after that we'll pause for any discussion on these topics. Tam tvameva bhagavaneta Shiva shaktyo svarupayaha Vishwam srijasi pashatsi Hridan urna pato yatha. My dear Lord, you create this cosmic manifestation, maintain it and annihilate it by expansion of your personality. Exactly as a spider creates, maintains, and winds up its web. So this is a famous analogy that is often used in the context of Lord Vishnu. That a spider without help from anybody, from within the body, produces the web, maintains it, and whenever it feels like, it will again take the web in its own body. So similarly, Krishna, without anybody's help, maintains the universe, creates it, maintains it, and destroys it. Here, as I mentioned, that a lot of the glorification that we see of Lord Vishnu is being spoken in the context of Lord Shiva. And then Prabhupada explains that there's no contradiction. It's not that Brahma was falsely glorifying Shiva. He was being untruthful here. So there's no contradiction because Lord Vishnu is the original cause and Lord Shiva is the energy through which he acts. Prabhupada says that in this word, Shiva Shakti is significant. Shiva means auspicious and Shakti means energy. There are many types of energies of the Supreme Lord and all of them are auspicious. Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwar are called Guna Avatar or incarnations of material qualities. Okay, so let me pause here and see if you have any comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, you were talking about Linga and the Yoni. Could you expand whatever you're familiar with in more details, how it formed?
So it's a symbolic representation of the union of the Purusha and Prakriti. So when the material universe is created, then at that time, the glance of Vishnu impregnates material nature. So the glance is Shiva and material nature is Maya. So that combination is worshipped because from that combination, the whole material creation unfolds. So the Yoni is considered to be representing Shakti, Durga Devi, and the Lingam is supposed to is supposed to show the male energy of Lord Shiva. So when the combination is worshipped, it is basically worshipping Sadashiv or worshipping Lord Shiva in his original form.
Any reason why we don't have any direct showing respect to a picture like as we do for Krishna? We don't see Shiva's picture, only Linga everywhere, right? No, so any past
if you go to temples, you do see Lord Shiva is worshipped with Parvati Devi. There are so many deities. So Lord Shiva sitting with Parvati Devi and Nandi Bo. Shivling is also, I mean, Shivling is probably a little bit more popularly mentioned, but in temples, you will see many, many places, deities of Shiva and Parvati.
Only I see that as a decorative, but not as a real worshipable deity. If you see that, it's not the worshipable deities. Only Shiv Mandir is Shiv temple is only linga. All the 7 like Jyotirlinga, what we say, which are in the one line in India, all are lingas. We never worship any Shiv or Parvati.
So I'm thinking, like, if you go to like Chakleshwar Mahadev, one of those temples, Lord Shiva is worshipped there as linga, or is worshipped in deity form over there, in personal form?
I don't know about the Chakleshwar Mahadev. All the Jyotirlingas are all lingas. I personally have never visited any temple with Shiva.
Okay. You may be right. I mean, at least I have recollection. At Delhi, there are a lot of temples of Durga Devi. It's basically a very, that's the main worship. And
Yeah, Durga Devi is Parvati. That is, I agree.
Parvati. So she's there. We generally see either she's sitting by herself on like a lion, or she's sitting with Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva has that Trishul, and very similar posture as is described over here. That his right leg is on his left thigh, and is in Virasana. And Taraka Mudra is generally this mudra there. But my experience is not, is mostly empirical. So I would not be able to, I guess, I will not be able to answer that conclusively.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Krishna. In one of the verses, it's mentioned about Lord Shiva holding the Rudraksha. You even mentioned he wears a Rudraksha mala around, the neck. One of the questions that we are asked when we do preaching, especially among Hindus, and we say Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, Lord Shiva is the greatest of all Vaishnavas, and we even heard that he chants on that Rudraksh, he chants the Krishna mantra. People will ask us if he's the greatest Vaishnavas, why doesn't he chant on the regular mala that the Vaishnavas chant on? That's the Tulsi mala. Why the Rudraksh, although there's some explanation you give, it seems like it doesn't answer that question.
It doesn't. I mean, one explanation is chanting on Rudraksh because his followers chant on Rudraksh. That's how they connect to him. So he's chanting on Rudraksh. Why isn't he not chanting on Tulsi? My understanding is that there are rules that are applied to us, and then the rules that are applied to personalities like Shiva and Brahma and of that stature. Like we don't see the gopis sitting and chanting on Tulsi. We don't see Radharani sitting and chanting on Tulsi. We don't see Yashoda and Nand sitting and chanting on Tulsi beads or wearing, not sure what Kantimala, probably never been picturized there. So there are injunctions that are for us as practicing devotees. And then there are perfected devotees also. So as practicing devotees, we are taking shelter of Tulsi Devi to get her mercy so that our sadhana can be perfected. Personalities like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, or even more exalted personalities in Golok, it's not that they consider themselves to be independent of other Vaishnavas, but they don't have the same kind of dependence. Like, we are basically begging for mercy from Tulsi Devi, because we have so many defects, so many lack of qualifications. They don't have. So rules that are applicable to sadhakas, even within sadhana bhakti, the rules get relaxed. In Nectar Devotion, it is said that earlier on, sadhana bhakti is Vaidi, strictly rules and regulations. Then it becomes Raghunag. So Raghunag, no Vaidi at that time. No need to chant 16 rounds. I mean, they might still chant because they like, but the rules don't apply anymore, right? Because there the loving is, the devotion is more spontaneous. So if we extrapolate that curve, Lord Shiva is much, much more advanced than Raghunag Bhakti. He's a Radhatmika. So difficult for us to say that what rules apply for us should also apply for him.
Also, Prabhu, they also asked this question whether why can't we chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on Rudraksha? Why do we have to chant on Tulsi? So that is also the question quite often asked. Because some people have Rudraksha Mala with them. So they ask, can we chant Maha Mantra in this? So what would be the best answer to them?
The reason that it is recommended that we chant on Tulsi is because we're taking shelter of her as a devotee of Krishna in the mood of her sampradaya. Right? In the morning when you sing the Tulsi prayers, what do we say? Radha Krishna Seva Paate Eya Bilashi. Right? We're explicitly asking for the service of Radha Krishna. Dina Krishna Dasa Koi Ei Mora Jina Hoy. That may I be a servant of Radha and Krishna. So the mood in which, as followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the mood in which we are approaching Krishna is a mood that is nourished by Tulsi Devi. So we explicitly take shelter of Tulsi Devi. There is a more esoteric explanation for this given by Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Maybe a topic for another time, another discussion. This is a little long discussion, but summary description, understanding is that as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, as followers of Prabhupada and Mahaprabhu, we are approaching Radha Krishna in a particular mood. That mood is nourished. That mood is cultivated by Tulsi Devi. So we take shelter of Tulsi Devi. We wear Kantimala. We chant on Tulsi beads. We cultivate Tulsi plants in our house. We offer obeisances to Tulsi Devi. We sing her glories. We offer her with prasadam. Right? That's just to establish a connection to Radha Krishna in the mood of Tulsi Devi.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. So let's move on to verse 44. Hopefully we'll finish this chapter today. Tvameva dharmat dugapityaye dakshena shutrena sachrijetadvaram tvayeva loke vashishtascha setavo yan brahmanaha shraddhate drukta. My dear Lord, your Lordship has introduced the system of sacrifices through the agency of Daksha. And thus one may derive the benefits of religious activities and economic development. Under your regulative principles, the institution of the 4 varnas and ashramas is respected. The Brahmanas therefore vow to follow this system strictly. So Brahma is now glorifying Lord Shiva as he says that Tvameva dharma artha duga, that you are the producer of dharma and artha. Then sasarjita advaram tvaya, you created sacrifice, the sacrifice to support dharma and artha. And dakshena sutrena. So sutrena means like weaving of cloth. So when threads are weaved together, individually the threads are weak. But when they are weaved together in a cloth, they become strong. So Dakshena Sutrena, Brahma is saying that you introduce this dharma and artha and yagya, weaving it like a cloth through Daksha. Because Daksha, he is the practitioner of what Lord Shiva has given as a principle. So when one practices, then the principle becomes strong and reinforced, just like the threads, they weave together to become a cloth. So Dakshena Sutrena Abhipataya. So why do people like Daksha perform dharma and yagya? For abhipatya, for the performance of artha, for material gains. Then Brahma says, Tvayeva loka avishthas chasetava, that you have created the rules of varnashram for the people. Yan brahmana shadhante dhritvata. Dhritvata means with determination. Yan brahmana, that which the brahmanas follow, and shraddhate, with faith. So they follow this, the Brahmans, they follow this with faith and determination. Dhritvata and shraddhate. So now you see here the mastery of Brahma. So previously Brahma has glorified Lord Shiva as transcendental. From the transcendental position, he has connected him to the material world. That you are fully transcendental, but you create the material world. Now, from the creator of the material world, he is now saying that you have also created dharma, artha, and yagya. Essentially dharma and artha. That you have created this within the material world. Through that, he is connecting Shiva with Daksha, right? So he's saying that you created this dharma, which is being practiced by Daksha. So essentially, Daksha is simply your follower. That he is reinforcing the principles that you have created. So if you recollect that at the beginning of this chapter, Brahma had spoken to the Devas, and then he said, having offended Lord Shiva, you should not even desire to live. Here he is making the point to Lord Shiva that the system of sacrifice instituted by him is for the welfare of everyone. So the yagyas that he has instituted is for the welfare of the universe. So the yagya that was destroyed by his followers, Lord Shiva should allow that to be completed. So he is laying the seed of two things that he will ask Shiva: forgive Daksha and let the yagya be completed. he's connecting both of them to Lord Shiva in this verse. So we see that Brahma, in the role of the father, he severely chastised the Devas for committing Vaishnava Aparadha. And now, again in the role of a father, he is protecting them. He is skillfully trying to diffuse the anger of Lord Shiva by showing that the Devas are actually following what you have set in place. So when in the Bhagavatam, when Rukmini was kidnapped by Krishna, then we see that her brother Rukmi, he became very angry, and then he follows Krishna, and then he engages Krishna in a battle, and of course Krishna defeats him. He does not kill him, but he shaves off his head. Then at that time Lord Balaram comes, and Balaram, he turns and chastises Krishna, that how can you treat your relatives like this? He's the brother of your wife. How can you treat him like this? Not good. And then he turns to Rukmini, and Rukmini, and he consoles her, saying that all these relationships are material. Your brother is a material connection. Don't worry about it. So Balaram, as a mediator, he is making sure that Krishna is corrected, at least in the past time, and also making sure that the grief of Rukmini is addressed. So similarly, Brahma is doing the same thing, that he's making sure the Devas are protected. How is he making sure? By making sure that they genuinely repent their offense, by chastising them. That will protect their bhakti. And at the same time, he is now presenting arguments to Lord Shiva to forgive the Deva. In one of Srila Prabhupada's pastime, that when Prabhupada was in India, once some of his Indian disciples, they complained to Srila Prabhupada, saying that your Western devotees, they spend too much money. That where they could go by bus or train, they take taxis, and where they could live in dharamshalas, they live in hotels. So and Prabhupada said that you should see all the sacrifice that they have done in giving up their comforts in the West and coming to India. That they are actually used to even a better standard of living. So appreciate that part of it. And then the next day when Prabhupada was giving a class, then he spoke extensively about how one should be careful about spending Krishna's money. He spoke about the glory of making personal sacrifices, how Krishna appreciates it. So he handled both the situation expertly. He did not want the Indian devotees to develop an offensive mentality. So he brought their attention to the glories of the Western disciples. But he also did not want this situation where one is being too loose with Krishna's money. So he spoke about it. He spoke about it philosophically and practically also. So Brahma over here is indicating that Daksha is actually serving the purpose of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva created Dharma and Artha, which is essentially Karmakand, and materialist Brahmins like Daksha, they follow it enthusiastically. And thus they have created respect for the Varnashram system. Now, since Daksha is now dead and the yajna stopped, then there will be a stoppage of dharma for the sake of artha, but those who follow dharma for artha, they will get affected. So with the destruction of dharma, there will be misfortune in the world. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Om karmanam mangala mangalanam kratu swalokam tanushe swaparam va amangalanam cha tamishram mulbanam viparyaya kena tadeva kaschit. O most auspicious Lord, you have ordained the heavenly planets, the spiritual Vaikuntha planets, and the impersonal Brahma sphere and the impersonal Brahman sphere as the respective destinations of the performance of auspicious activities. Similarly, for others who are miscreants, you have destined different kinds of hells, which are horrible and ghastly. Yet, sometimes it is found that their destinations are just opposite. It is very difficult to ascertain the cause of this. So Brahma first states that Lord Shiva, he has created heaven and hell, Swarga and Naraka. And those who perform auspicious activities, they go to heavenly planets. Those who are materially detached, they go to the impersonal Brahman. And those who are devotees, they go to Vaikuntha. Right? So one gets the destination according to their activities. And similarly, on the other end of the spectrum, the miscreants, they go to heaven. However, he says that vipraya eva kaschit. Sometimes the opposite is also seen. He says, why do you do this? That sometimes the people who are performing pious activities go to hell, and people who are performing sinful activities, they go to Vaikuntha. So he's questioning that it's difficult for me to ascertain it. Why does this vipraya eva kaschit happens? So he's making this point in the context of Daksha over here, that from a material perspective, Daksha is not impious. He has not performed any adharmic activities, right? He has not broken any regulative principles. He has not performed any sinful activities. So from the material perspective, Daksha is a pious Brahman. He is a performer of yagyas. So as per the system that was created, he should be elevated. And the Brahma say that, but you have sent him to such a ghastly death by killing him like an animal at the hands of Virabhadra. His yagya is incomplete. And he died under such horrible circumstances, fearful, and being slowly killed by Virabhadra. Virabhadra tries to different weapons. He tries to cut his neck, and then finally he kills him like an animal. Vishwanath Chakravarti says that Brahma is asking that why do pious people like Daksha go to hell, and why do sinners like Ajamil get liberation? Because there's the other part also, that there are sinners who get elevated. So Prabhupada, he addresses the second part of the question in his purport. And he says the reason that the sinners go to heaven or sinners get liberation is because of bhakti. The Prabhupada says that when a devotee is in a calamitous condition, he takes it as a benediction of the Supreme Lord and takes responsibility himself for his past misdeeds. In such a condition, he offers still more devotional service and is not disturbed. One who lives in such a disposition of mind engaged in devotional service is the most eligible candidate for promotion to the spiritual worlds. In other words, a devotee's claim for promotion to the spiritual world is assured in all circumstances. So I think most of you can recognize this verse Prabhupada is speaking about. This is spoken by Brahma after the Brahma Vimohan Leela, Tattenu Kampam Susumikshamano. One who tolerates all kinds of suffering, patiently waiting for Krishna's mercy. For him, promotion to the spiritual world is assured in all circumstances. So the point that Prabhupada is making over here is that externally the person may be in hellish conditions, suffering badly, but he still gets promoted because of his consciousness of bhakti. So because of bhakti, a sinner can get promoted. Sinner is equivalent to suffering. A sinner may get promoted. First part of Brahma's question, of course, is that why are you condemning a pious person to hellish conditions? In Mahabharata, if you contrast the character of Karna and Arjuna, it is very revealing that in the final stages of the battle, when Karna and Arjuna were fighting, then the chariot wheels of Karna were stuck, and he's trying to lift the wheels, but he's not able to. And then he sees that Arjuna is going to kill him. His death is inevitable. So at that point, Karna begins to curse dharma. He says that I have always followed the principles of dharma, and now I have been cheated by dharma. So no one should follow dharma. So at that point, Krishna, he talks to Karna, and he gives many, many instances when Karna had breached the principles of dharma. That, when Draupadi was being molested, when he spoke lies to Parshuram just to get knowledge, when he manipulated to get power from the Duryodhana. So many examples he gives, and Krishna is speaking to create self-awareness in Karna, that he's factually aware of his position. Now, on the other hand, Arjuna, he was asked by Krishna to shoot the fatal arrow on an unarmed Karna, which is against the Kshatriya code of conduct. And at that point, Arjuna prays. He says that only if I have practiced the principles of dharma, let this arrow strike Karna. And of course, we know the arrow does strike Karna. We see that Arjuna was taking shelter of dharma while Karna was cursing dharma. Arjuna was coming from a position of humility, while Karna was coming from a position of pride. So the point that is being made here is that the external practice yields results in conjunction with the internal consciousness. That it is said that Karna was very charitable, but actually when he took the vows of charity, he took it explicitly for this purpose, that may I not be defeated in battle. So he did not take the vows only out of humility or with a desire to help others. It was a materialistic vow, that I will give charity, and in return for that, may I not be defeated in battle. In this particular stage, one would think that Arjuna was breaking dharma and Karna was following dharma. But the internal consciousness shows that Karna was cursing dharma and Arjuna was taking shelter of it. So this answers the question Brahma is saying, that why do people who are sinful get elevated and people who are elevated fall? because of their consciousness. Yeah. Next verse. Navai satam tvagcharana pitatmanam bhuteshu sarveshva abhipashatam tava bhutani chatmanya apratagdidrikshatam prayena rosho vibhaved yatha pashu. My dear Lord, devotees who have fully dedicated their lives unto your lotus feet certainly observe your presence as Paramatma in each and every being, and as such they do not differentiate between one living being and another. Such persons treat all living entities equally. They never become overwhelmed by anger like animals, who can see nothing without differentiation. So in the previous verse, Brahma had asked that why should Lord Shiva punish those who are pious and liberate those who are impious? So it may appear that Brahma is trying to find fault with Lord Shiva. So now he is clarifying. So what is he saying? That Lord Shiva's punishing of Daksha is not due to his anger, but due to his greater compassion and mercy. And later, he will ask Shiva to revive Daksha as a further act of the same mercy. So what does Brahma says that? He says that one may say that in anger, a person loses discrimination and may act in a contrary way. Then Brahma says that those who surrender to you, they cannot be subject to anger. So this is Kimutaya Nyaya. So those who take shelter of Lord Shiva cannot be influenced by anger. So there is no possibility of Lord Shiva being influenced by anger. Right. So that one point that Brahma is making, that it's not that I'm saying that you became influenced by anger and killed Daksha, because those who surrender to you cannot be influenced by anger. So it's not possible for you to be influenced by anger. So if it is not a symptom of Shiva's anger, then what it is? Brahma says that if it is not anger, then it could only be mercy. So therefore he says, because you, out of your mercy, you killed Daksha, if you could extend this mercy and revive him and allow the sacrifice to continue. Right? So he establishes that Shiva did not kill Daksha out of anger, but out of mercy. And then he says that please be more merciful and revive him and let the sacrifice come. He will say later, but that's the foundation that he is making. So Lord Shiva may say that if you consider my killing of Daksha to be an act of mercy, then even these devas, they're also complicit with the infractions of Daksha. So why are you asking me to forgive the devas? Because even though Brahma has not explicitly asked, but the fact that he's coming with the devas, that point is implicitly made. So Brahma responds to this implicit question by saying that for some persons, punishing them may be the act of mercy, but generally speaking, forgiving them is a greater act of mercy. And Vishwanath Chakravarti states that the grammar of this verse indicates that when Brahma is speaking this principle, the principle is that while punishing may be an act of mercy, forgiving is a greater act of mercy. Vishwanath Chakravarti says that the grammar indicates that this principle is to be applied in a general way, thereby acknowledging that exceptions will exist. So, like the cursing of Jai, or the killing of Daksha, or the killing of Maharaj Vena, these are all exceptions where the mercy was actually in killing, or in case of Jai, it was in cursing, or in case of Daksha and Maharaj Vena. In case of Maharaj Vena, the Brahmas killed him, and that was their act of mercy on him because he was so sinful. In case of Daksha, his disposition was sinful. Externally, he was pious, his disposition was sinful. So killing was actually an act of mercy. But Brahma is also trying to show that there is a higher principle in play that could be applied over here. Okay, so it looks like I won't be able to finish this chapter. I'll do one more verse and then I'll pause for any discussion. Prithagvyaha kanmadrasho durashayaha parodayenar pitahred rujo nisham parandurukte vitudante aruntudas tanamavadid devavadan bhavavidu. Persons who observe everything with differentiation, who are simply attached to fruitive activities, who are mean-minded, who are pained to see the flourishing condition of others, and who thus give distress to them by uttering harsh words and piercing words, have already been killed by providence. There is no need for them to be killed again by an exalted personality like you. So Brahma is giving 5 symptoms of those who are sinful, and they are in increasing orders of severity. So Pritagdhya means that they see difference between, they have a differentiated vision. One way is understanding that they see a difference between Lord Shiva and beings. Other is that they see a difference between beings, Pritagdhya. Then Karmadrashu. Karmadrashu means that they see in terms of material benefits for themselves. Means that they are attached to karma, fruitive activities. Then Drisha Durashaya. That Drisha means the vision is Durashaya. They are mean-minded. Then Para Udayena, envy. That become angry at seeing the prosperity of others. Even if the other person is not doing anything bad to them, just because the person is prosperous, they become angry. That is envy. And Durukter Aruntudas Vitudantyatan, that they afflict the others with harsh words. So increasing order of severity, that differentiated vision. So they are not really, they're just themselves having this differentiated vision. Because of that, they develop attachment to karma, they become mean-minded, envious. Then they start inflicting pain on other people because of that. So Brahma says there's such people, they're already killed by the law of karma. So there is no need for Lord Shiva to exert himself. So Brahma says this in response to an implicit question by Lord Shiva, that Daksha may be, he is saying that Brahma, you're asking me to forgive Daksha because he's pious and is performing yagyas. but he's also full of faults. And if I do not give suitable punishment, then everyone will follow the path of Daksha. They will perform pious activities out of pride. They will insult others, and they will think that, like Daksha did not have any consequences, I will also not have consequences. So Brahma is expertly, he is laying down the 5 bad qualities that were present in Daksha. Right. So if you look at these 5 qualities, all of them were displayed by Daksha. Differentiated vision, attachment to karma kand, mean-mindedness, he got upset because he was not respected. Envy, he was envious of the stature of Lord Shiva. And then afflict others with harsh words. He cursed Shiva, he spoke harsh words. So Brahma is saying that Daksha has already been killed because he has these bad qualities, karma will kill him. So why do you have to involve yourself? The point that is making is that the way that karma deals with such person is it also purifies them. And that is the system, I think he's saying, has been said by Lord Shiva himself, that when people are punished by karma, they are rectified by karma. When person suffers, the person has realizations, the person becomes more elevated, gives up back sinful disposition. So he's saying that system set by you will take care of these people. But when you kill Daksha, there is no hope for remediation for him in the future because he is not going to be purified by karma. So similarly, we will see later on in the Yajna of Prithu Maharaj, when Indra stole the horse, the Brahmana said that you don't have to punish Indra. To Prithu Maharaj, they said you don't have to punish because by virtue of his sinful activities, Indra's power has already been reduced. So let that be sufficient punishment for him. Okay. So I'll pause over here and see if there is any discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Sometime we have this kind of situation even in our Vaishnava dealings, like when someone who's committed something wrong is not being punished, and the person who is affected wants him to be punished, and he doesn't feel satisfied unless some obvious punishment is given. So it's I don't know how it requires a higher level of consciousness to accept that the person already committed certain offense that in itself is a punishment for him because of his position. He has fallen down from his position. So I don't know. It's a very high. I'm thinking like that because I'm coming across some of these situations, and I do see when that punishment was not given, I feel that it's a great injustice done to the person who is affected by that kind of act. He considers that it's a great injustice that the other person is not being punished properly. So can you please comment on that, Prabhu?
Thank you, Prabhu. So if one is seeking punishment in the mood of vengeance, that is definitely not recommended. But if one is seeking punishment to rectify the consciousness of the person or to protect the others from that person, then it is justified, right? So you're indicating a person in the position of power doing something wrong, has done wrong to one person, and the person is seeking retribution. So if the person is coming from this place that this person who wronged me is in a position of power and can wrong others also. So there has to be some system to protect the others, right? So that's completely justified. Or if the person is coming from the mood of mercy, that this person does not even know that he or she is putting his own spiritual life at risk by acting like that. So punishment will force the person to think, then it's justified. However, if the person is saying that he punished me, so he should be punished, and that's more coming from tamasic, it's more coming from the mode of ignorance. We see both these in play in this pastime. Right? Lord Shiva punishes Daksha, and Lord Shiva forgives Daksha. And he punishes him because he wants to set an example to others that this mentality is not tolerated. It is to be condemned. And then he does not forgive him fully, but he kind of forgives him. He kind of forgives him to also show the magnanimity of Vaishnavas. Daksha had cursed Lord Shiva, and he had insulted, he caused the death of his wife, and he still forgives. He still forgives. And later on he says that my relationship to these devas is like that of a father. So when a child does something wrong, the father will punish the child. Otherwise, the child will develop bad tendencies. But the father does not punish out of malice. The father punishes out of the welfare of the child. And if the welfare of the child involves withdrawing that punishment, the father will be more than happy to do so. So the principle in play is the welfare of the person. And generally, that's the understanding we are also given in dealing with these difficult situations. That if we see somebody committing an offense, what do we do? If we see somebody acting with somebody else in an offensive manner, because they're careful when dealing with Vaishnavas, and we want to stay away from offenses. So the general principle is that whatever actions that we do, will it be for the welfare of that Vaishnava or other Vaishnavas? If the answer is yes, then we should pursue that action. If no, then we shouldn't.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll stop here. Vanchakalpatarubhayasya kripa sindhu vyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nithai Gaur Premanand. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.